21st century kind of guy there, a technology? Is that your?
Yeah, I'd say I'm a kind of live in that world. And, a lot of times we talk about technology that's at the consumer level here in the 21st century, but some of it sounds like sci-fi. Well, the story I have for you today, I couldn't help but talk about. It does sound like a science fiction novel or movie, and that is that scientists out of the University of Bristol in the UK have discovered a way to turn nuclear waste into batteries that can last thousands of years.
Seriously.
Crazy, crazy, crazy story. So, there's lots of science involved with this, but we'll kind of top level it, and it's very, very interesting. Basically, we all love nuclear energy. It's a very clean, green energy, but the disadvantage of it is that it does produce some waste, specifically in barrels of graphene blocks that are radioactive and have carbon-14 on the outside, have a radioactive material that they have to store for long periods of time, which puts a big cost on here in the United States, us taxpayers who have to pay for the storage of that. So what these scientists found is they wanted a way to reduce the cost and see if there was other uses. And again, they found this amazing use where they could take this radioactive pellet, you just think of a little pellet of graphene pellet. What they found is that realistically most of the radioactivity is right on the outside of the pellet. So what they're able to do is heat it up and basically melt off, the radioactivity and turn it into a gas. Then they take that gas and they form it down into an artificial diamond, a man-made diamond. Because realistically, we're talking about two forms of carbon. The diamond is another form of carbon. But what's really interesting is that these man-made diamonds have a special property that if they're exposed to a radioactive field, they produce a small amount of electricity. But because this man-made diamond is fully made out of radioactive material, it produces its own electricity, which is absolutely fascinating and brilliant. So what they were able to do then is seal this radioactive diamond. If you're imagining a little diamond that's radioactive, they were able to seal it with another artificial human diamond that is like a normal diamond you have. And the advantage of that is that it completely seals off all radiation leaking out of this diamond battery, if you will, and allows it so that it actually produces less less radioactivity than a banana. So it's totally safe to handle, in your hand, no material.
What's the output current-wise?
That's a really good question. So the downside of this is that the output is very, very small, at least currently, until they can overcome a couple obstacles. We're talking something like a gram of this would produce 15 joules per day. But that's a very, very small amount of power. But here's the advantage. It actually works at the half-life of carbon. So to put it in perspective, this battery would only get to 50% of its charge in the year it started today, in the year 7,746. So it would get to halfway through its charge in 5,730 years.
So you're going to have a whole slew of these batteries linked up in some form, parallel or series, to be able to get any kind of oomph out of it.
Correct. Right now, that is one of the biggest downsides. However, as they increase the amount of power they can get out of it, this could have incredible uses for things like satellites, space probes, that basically anywhere you need to have a lot of power, or need to have power, but changing a battery doesn't make a lot of sense. Another thing that this could be used for is pacemakers, something that doesn't need a lot of power but needs some power, and you always want it to work, and you can't really get in there and change the battery out. But really fascinating way of taking what is normally nuclear waste and turning it into something useful. But as you say, there was definitely some obstacles to overcome to make it more efficient.
Well, you're just a little fountain of wealth here in information this morning.
Fascinating.
Isn't that neat? And
Yes.
what I also find is how real life mimics science fiction that we've had for years. If you think about Star Trek, or you think about Stargate, or some of the famous science fictions that are out there, a lot of times you see that they're using crystals or diamonds as like their power method. Or and it's funny how the more and more we go down these paths towards the future, it kind of mimics that.
Well, if you think about it too, in the long run, this could be just the precursor for something that could be designed later on down the road that would be even more efficient and have a larger power output at the same time, you know?
I completely agree. I think it shows a lot of promise, and I think it shows that, we can take something that is normally a waste and make it into almost 100% efficient as far as its usefulness, which is just really, really incredible.
Well, you are. You're a 21st century kind of guy then. I mean,
A little ahead of our time here, but I think this is definitely something to watch. And, right now, of course, diamonds are expensive, so that there's that downside as well. But again, for these high-end applications like space travel, it could be a really interesting power source.
Great stuff, and thank you for joining us this morning.
You got it.
Larry Stenneback, First Rule Media is the name of the company, talking to us about diamonds and power, which